Hello, I'd like to welcome everybody back to Alabama Care. Today we are in Jasper, Alabama with Ms. McCartney Hagar. And Ms. Hagar is a freshman at UAB. And today we're going to be talking about the Uninspiring Group and fundraising in the Philippines. And at this point, I'd like to hand it over. Ms. Hagar, if you would introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is McCartney Hagar. As you know, I'm a freshman at UAB. I'm 18, going on 19. Well, I like writing, and I love disability culture. I'm like an enthusiast, you know.
And we always like to ask, are you originally from Alabama?
I am. My parents are not, so that's why I don't have an accent.
Okay. And what part of the country are your parents originally from?
Michigan.
Oh, nice. Kind of northern Michigan or?
Southern Michigan, I think.
Yeah. I've been up to like Ann Arbor. It's a beautiful place. And then I have some family that lives in Traverse City.
I love Traverse City. I want to go so bad.
Yeah. And then Northport, Michigan. It's a beautiful area up there.
Yeah.
They have the dried cherries that we kind of get shipped down to the house sometimes. And
oh, wow. That's nice. Yeah. I'm jealous.
I'll have to give you some there. And we always like to ask, I feel like being in Alabama, it's kind of a question we get asked is, what is your team? Is it Roll Tide or War Eagle?
Well, I mean, I'm a student at UAB now, so I guess go Blazers.
There you go. And their football team has been up and running now for a few seasons again, and they have a great football team. My brother actually was a coach there for a while.
Oh, nice, nice.
Yeah. So pretty cool. And I would like to compliment your shirt.
Thank you so much.
Looking very good. And
thank you.
You mentioned that you do have a hobby of kind of clothes shopping and hobbyists there. If you would kind of talk about that.
Well, I love like vintage clothing, you know, so I'll go on used clothing sites, things like that, and kind of swap stuff. So I'll find things that I'm not wearing or people will give to me. And if I can't use it, then I'll sell it. It's better for the environment, you know, than just pitching things.
Yeah. And I've heard that's a huge industry now is kind of, you can find these designer clothes that might have come out a year ago for a lot cheaper there. So you kind of like to do some of that.
Well, this shirt's like, I think it's from the 80s. So.
I dig it. Like the styles, they come back. They go out of fashion and they come back. I'm seeing a lot of bell bottoms come back in fashion.
You know, I love it. I love it.
When I was in school, they had these jeans. They were called Jenko jeans.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
And I had a pair, but every time it would rain, whoever was wearing Jenko jeans that day would come in and the bottoms of them would be drenched.
Oh my gosh.
Like all the way up to the knees. And you also talked about, before we went live here, we were talking about some of your other hobbies, and you mentioned kind of international dolls.
Yeah, that's something I've been doing since I was like, I don't know, 10 or 11. I found like this Russian doll type thing at a thrift store, and that's been my thing. So
now, when I think of those dolls, I think of the ones that kind of go inside of each other.
No, not that.
What exactly is that?
Well, okay, I don't really know the proper term for them. Some people call them Russian cone dolls, but they have like these traditional costumes. And they have these pretty hats, and they're all like handmade, and their faces are hand painted.
Yeah.
They're just really pretty, you know, and there's so much artistry that goes into making them.
I think it's cool to support those local things, like you're saying, those native country things. Now, how many do you have?
I don't actually know. Maybe like a handful, I would say. I got someone had got some from a festival in California, and I got some from Poshmark, so that was cool.
Yeah. If you had to pick one as your favorite, which one would you say?
It's hard to say. Probably the first one I ever got. It's got like a green skirt, and it's got all this embroidery and braided brown yarn hair and what they call a kokoshnik tiara.
A what?
I think it's pronounced kokoshnik. I don't know. I'm not Russian.
But neither am I. You can tell me whatever. You know, I'll be like, okay.
It looks like a hat that's like flat and kind of shaped like a seashell almost.
Huh. It makes me think of like a fedora in a low.
Not at all.
Oh, really?
It looks like something, I don't know. I think they use those as inspiration for like outfits in Star Wars and things like that.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm really weird, Alex. You have to understand.
No, I love it. So, I have these little things that I really enjoy and I super nerd out on in science and stuff like that. So I love learning about these things that I have no idea about.
Yeah, it happened completely by accident. Found it at a thrift store, and yep, that's my thing now.
So I want to talk a little bit about you've graduated high school.
Yes.
And you are a freshman at UAB, and you'll be starting your classes in the fall.
Yes.
And what are some of maybe the transition there? How do you feel about going into college? You a little bit nervous?
I am a little bit nervous. I mean, I'm really excited for the independence that, living in a city like Birmingham is going to offer me. But at the same time, it's like, wow, I've never been away from home like that before. Mm-hmm. The farthest I go is to camp, and that's like 5 days,
Yeah. I remember when I was moving out of the house after I graduated high school and then moving into my dorm, I didn't know my roommate. I didn't know really. I had a couple of friends from high school that were going to the same college, but it was this whole new experience. And then you're put in this dorm, and there's hundreds of people in the same building, and it's like you're thrown into this area where you're meeting new people, and it's a little overwhelming. Mm-hmm. But then you realize everybody's going through the same experience, meeting all these new people, and then it's really fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to all the UAB does this thing for freshmen where the whole first semester is just all these events, all these opportunities to meet people. I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, they do all these socials where it's like come get coffee or soda and
right.
Pizza. You're going to have a lot of pizza events.
I'm ready for the freshman 15. I'm already mentally preparing myself.
It comes, believe me. It's something that I had to keep an eye on. Transitioning to UAB, were there any accommodations that you're asking for UAB, and how is that going?
I'm asking for all the accommodations. I need so much, honestly. It was a long, stressful process to get that done, but I was able to do it. It took a lot of working together with my team and UAB's DSS. I would say the biggest thing is you need support from ADRS and you need support from your caseworker because it's hard. You're just a teenager, really, and you have to go and fill out this paperwork and list everything you could possibly need in the next 4 years.
And what does that look like? When did you start working on that in high school?
What do you mean?
When you started thinking about going into college and asking for those accommodations and thinking what that would look like, did you have somebody through high school that would help, or was it more ADRS and your personal team?
I took self-advocacy courses with my case manager, the special education teacher at my high school. Mm-hmm. She was really great, and she helped me a lot. But the coursework, honestly, I don't think it was as good as I was expecting, which is the state standard. And there wasn't really enough for me to know how to fill out the paperwork when I got to it, because there's so many variables you don't expect. How much extended time will I need? Or how much will I need accommodations in this type of setting versus this type of setting?
It's tough if you don't have the actual experience yet and you're kind of projecting and forecasting that.
Right. It's so hard because you have to think about all the different scenarios because you don't want to get there and then not have something you really need on the paperwork and then have to go through the process of fighting to have that added.
Yeah. And so everything's been going smooth, but how, let's say you get on campus and you're like, okay, I need a little bit more time. That process to ask for that. You've been trained in that. Or is that kind of self-taught?
It depends. I've had my high school teacher that I told you about. She's really great. So she gave me a lot of support in figuring out the proper courses to go through to get what you need. But the communication is definitely self-taught.
Yeah.
There's so much writing on it.
And I'd like to compliment you. I think your communication is excellent.
Thank you so much.
We've spoken over the phone a few times and communicated through email. And so I applaud your parents and yourself for having that communication style. I think it goes a long way in today's world when normally we just send a text message to somebody, but to be able to have a conversation and write that full-length email, you've done very well.
Thank you. I mean, it's like I said, it's a privilege. I mentioned this before the broadcast that that I'm lucky enough to be in an environment where I was able to learn these skills. I think that some people some disabled people, their parents maybe never taught them to advocate for themselves, or maybe they didn't have the right support in school to teach them how to communicate effectively. And some people just don't have the ability. There's so much ableism when it comes to communication that I'm really lucky to just be in the position I am be able to do what I've been able to do.
I love that outlook.
Thank you.
My aunt, my family member, is nonverbal, and so it's very hard for her to communicate her wants and desires and needs there. If you could talk a little bit about self-advocacy at a young age, do you remember how that kind of started, or was there an instance that you can always remember in your youth where that was a growing opportunity?
Well, when I was in 6th grade, there was this sort of debacle with a test. I didn't finish it on time, which, I was handwriting it, so that's kind of to be expected. And it was in my IEP that I have extended time. But there was some kind of miscommunication, and the teacher thought I just didn't either want to finish it or decided not to. Something went wrong there. And I ended up with a C because of this half-finished test. And there was this big thing, we had to get it fixed. And the teacher felt really bad and everything, but it was just, I feel like from that point on, I was like, okay, I can't just go with the flow and accept, because I was just going to be like, well, it won't bring down my grade that much. My grade is fine. But I learned that I can't just accept things, that I am entitled to what is in my IEP and what the ADA has, secured for me. And so I have to fight for that.
I love how you're referencing the ADA and your rights, because I feel like a lot of people don't know or appreciate those as well. But those are ammo to get what you need to level that playing field.
Exactly.
And so that was in 6th grade. You were how old then?
12.
12. So that's young to be standing up to a teacher.
Well, I didn't stand up, not that time, but that taught me that from now on, this is going to have to be my job, because I can't have my dad do everything for me,
Yeah. And then it kind of went through in high school. And how is the relationship with teachers throughout?
It varies by teacher. Most of them, they don't want to get in trouble. They're going to give you just about anything you want, especially if you're nice, which I don't think you should have to be nice,
Yeah.
Even jerks deserve legal, supports, everything they're entitled to.
I will say it does kind of grease the wheels to be a little bit nice.
Yeah.
It makes things go a little bit smoother.
That was in my self-advocacy course I took in high school.
Tell us about that.
There was one sheet, and me and my teacher both cracked up at it. We were laughing to keep from crying at that point. But it said, if your boss or coworker asks you to do something, do it. Do everything you can for them, because then they're more likely to help you. It's like, you want me to just run myself ragged committing to things I can't possibly do so I can get my legal protections recognized?
Yeah, I don't like that where it's running yourself ragged. But I do think being cordial with people, because there are people that rub me the wrong way, and it's like, you know what, I'm just going to be cordial and smooth conversation transition there. I think it's nice to give the benefit of the doubt too, because you never know what that individual's going through that day.
Right.
Like their pet might have just passed away and they're in a really bad mood. And so I'm trying to keep that in mind as well. I'd like you to talk a little bit about, you mentioned ADRS. If you could talk about your relationship with ADRS and how that's been going.
I wouldn't be able to do any of this without ADRS, as you know. It's opened so many doors for me. I have a really good team. I'm very lucky in that respect, because not everybody does, There are great people at ADRS, and I've been lucky to get all of them on my team.
Now, do you remember when you first started working with ADRS?
I've been with them as long as I can remember. I've had an OT. I've had a case manager since I was in kindergarten. Well, actually preschool. So.
And what does your team look like currently with ADRS? Or let's just say your team in general.
Okay. Do I name names or?
No, I would just say kind of their area of expertise.
Okay. Well, I have, a social worker, and she's my case manager. She makes all this stuff happen for me and coordinates things. I also have another social worker who is half VR and half SAIL. So I'm right now at the age I'm at, I can get services from CRS and ADR and VR, and that's been amazing. So I have those two, and then I have two rehab engineers, one from CRS and one from VR. And I don't know, other people are involved too. Certain people come and go at certain opportunities.
And you have your close-knit family. that's always supporting you throughout that. And we might have met some of the engineers at ADRS. Is one of them Michael Papp?
Yeah, he's not on my case. He's like their supervisor. But I've worked with them before, yeah.
Yeah, we've gone down there. Have you been in their lab? I call it their lab.
I love it in there.
Isn't
it's
it so
cool? I was just there the other day.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Was it on Thursday last week? Was it right when you got back from camp?
That got canceled.
Oh, yeah, we did talk about it. Yeah.
They're going to wait until I'm at my college dorm to just see if there's any unforeseen technology needs.
That's not a bad idea because then you'll have that experience in person, and you might have it, or they, anybody could have a little bit better knowledge about exactly what that looks like.
Right.
But I love that lab. I feel like I could get lost down there building stuff like all day.
Honestly, it almost made me want to change majors.
Really?
Yeah, I thought about it for a good second, and then I changed my mind back.
to like engineering and tinkering?
Yeah, I thought about going into it.
Yeah. So UAB, let's talk a little bit about what you're currently going into UAB to study.
Okay, well, I'm going into sociology, and I'm also part of the Global and Community Leadership program, the honors program.
And what made you want to kind of go into sociology?
Well, it took a lot of research.
Let's step a little bit back for anybody that's unfamiliar with sociology. What exactly is it?
Well, it's sort of the study of groups of people, society, and how we all interact with each other on a small scale or a large scale. So like different communities, different cultures, how we all interact and intermingle with each other.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of, I took an anthropology class I remember I really enjoyed.
Yeah, it's similar.
Yeah, and it was kind of like tools and what I got out of it is how tools shape how we think. And I thought that was really cool.
There's a lot of sociology courses that are things you wouldn't expect. Like I think one of the ones is the sociology of hip hop music.
So you're listening to like rap music all day.
I'm looking forward to that one. I'm going to be taking that one.
Heck yeah. I'm going to take a little bit of a turn here, but what kind of music do you enjoy?
I like all kinds of music. I do listen to hip hop music, especially British hip hop music.
British hip hop? I don't think I'm familiar with British hip hop music.
Oh, there's so many great people. I was raised on like the Beatles and all kinds of stuff like that. So Anglophile, I guess.
Yeah. I remember I was listening to some hip hop when I was younger in middle school, and my dad caught wind of it and I heard there were some words that he didn't think were appropriate. And back then all we had were CDs. So he took my entire CD collection and ran it over and threw it out.
Oh my gosh, that's terrible. I would cry.
Horrible. I did. Aww. Yeah, I was devastated. I'd spent like $200 buying all these CDs.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm scarred from it.
I legitimately would be.
Is there a favorite artist right now that you have?
Well, one thing I wanted to mention is I actually love, I said I was really into disability culture. We have our own music genres.
Tell me more.
So I found out about this only a couple months ago. I saw a concert by a woman person named Dennis Queen, and I watched their videos, and all these artists they were covering, they weren't new artists. There was music in the disability rights movement. There was a whole culture around it. So one of the artists I've been listening to right now is Johnny Crescendo.
Johnny Crescendo.
Yeah.
We're going to have to drop a link in the chat for them. Is there a song that if we drop like a YouTube video in the chat so people can click on it, is there a song that you'd recommend?
There's so many songs I would recommend. I would say Pride is a really good song, especially for this month being Disability Pride Month.
Johnny Crescendo and Pride. So we'll drop a YouTube in there.
Yay.
Give him a little bit of a shout out.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's go back to sociology. So tell us a little bit about, being in high school and speaking, with some of the support there about what you wanted to study in school, and how did sociology come about, or did you know from a young age?
Well, originally I wanted to be, since I was like in kindergarten, I wanted to be an author and illustrator, and I still want to do that, but most importantly, I want to help my community. I want to do things that, can impact the lives of other people directly. Mm-hmm. So and I realized that around high school. That's when I really started learning about, who I was and what made me who I am. And I think my growing up disabled is a big part of that. Mm-hmm. So originally I wanted to go into disability studies, but that's a really hard program to find. There were only a couple places I could find it, like NYU, and then the University of Illinois Chicago also.
Yeah.
So I wanted, and Berkeley, I think, has it. No, wait, no, Berkeley doesn't have it. So I wanted to go to one of those places, but I was scared. And also I didn't, being in a situation where I didn't have personal care.
Mm-hmm. Excuse me. And that's a big move out of state, so far away from home.
Right.
And what you've created as your support network and friends.
Right.
It is tough moving to a new place. I moved to Alabama about 5 years ago and still building my friend network.
It's hard to build it back.
Yeah, it is. But I feel like I feel like sociology is a good grounding to that.
That's what I thought too. I thought, well, it's a little more broad, and that's also great because I don't want to just focus on disability because there's so many other communities within the disability community. Mm-hmm. There's Black disabled people, there's Latinx disabled people, and they all have their own specific take on what it's like to be in this community. So I don't want to just learn about disability. I want to learn about all the different marginalized people and what kind of we can do to make things better. Yeah,
I love how you're taking kind of a more general in the beginning to learn a lot of different scenarios, and then you can kind of fine tune it as you go along. And you said when you got in high school, you were thinking about, you always wanted to be an author and an illustrator, and you can always do that. Do you still draw, or do you still write?
I do, yeah. I write all the time, actually. I write for the Camp Ask a Guest blog, and I'm working on a program right now. It's called the Disabled Writers Mentorship Program. So I'm working with a woman from Chicago, and she's helping me learn how to write more professionally.
Yeah, I hate writing.
Really?
I absolutely hate it.
Come on,
That's
Alex.
why we do these broadcasts. I don't have to write like long form.
Alex.
We can just have a conversation.
Writing is wonderful.
I will jot. I have, you see my little journal here, and I'll journal sometimes. But when it comes to professionally writing, one of the worst things that I had in college was creative writing. I
would love to take that course so much.
I would be like, teacher, I have a writer's block, and I would be like 2 sentences in. I'm like, what do you just tell me what you want me to write about? I'll do a paper on history, whatever you want. She's like, no, you have to find a topic and you have to like create a story. I'm like, I have no idea.
I want to take that class so bad.
I wish you could have taken it from me.
I mean, if you ever go back to college for some reason, hit me up. We can work something out there.
Now with the author and illustrator, what kind of genre do you really enjoy?
Well, as a kid, my favorite was like mysteries. So Nancy Drew and Boxcar Children that was my favorite thing. So now that I'm older, I don't know. Again, disabled authors are always great. And I like sci-fi. I like fantasy too. I don't know. I'll read just about anything.
Yeah, I like the sci-fi and fantasy. Like if I'm going to get on Netflix or something like that, I want to go to sci-fi and fantasy first.
It's a nice escapism thing,
Yeah, I want to see like, which one did I see? Did you ever see Ender's Game?
Yes, my dad actually read that book to me when I was in kindergarten.
I haven't read the book. I heard it's is it a trilogy? There's like is it one? I've only seen the movie.
I think it's more than a trilogy, actually.
Really? I've heard the books are great.
Yeah, they really are. Orson Scott Card wrote so many sequels to that book, though. I think, and prequels maybe.
Yeah, I love the movie, but I'll always go into sci-fi and adventure kind of fantasy stuff. Pacific Rim, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I love Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah.
I love Pan's Labyrinth.
Yeah.
That movie. It's so sad, but it's good.
If you haven't seen it, it's in Spanish, I believe.
Yeah.
And it's a very heart-wrenching story, but it is an adventure. I think it's on Netflix too. I do want to acknowledge chat here. So Sarah Williams says, hey,
Hi,
McCartney. Ryan Alfred says, watching Thursday afternoon today. Virginia Rediker says, yay, McCartney.
Hi, Jenny.
Good to see you there, Mrs. Rediker. Sarah Williams says, sociology is my major as well.
Twins. I love that.
And Zui Tay says, congrats.
Oh, that's actually one of the mothers that I was telling you about the Philippines. Mm-hmm. That's her.
So let's talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
Mrs. Tay, thank you for being with us here today.
Yes. Hi. It's so good to see you or hear from you.
Yes. So we'll jump around and I'll kind of jump back in. I do want to ask a little bit about the honors program, a little bit, but, and Amanda Dembrowski says, hi, Cart, watching in Michigan.
Oh yeah. That's my aunt.
Yeah.
Or rather cousin, but close enough.
So tell us about the Philippines.
Well, so a few months, probably like 6 months back when the Uninspiring Group was new, I got a member request. You know, I filter the members and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And from a woman named Jing. And I wasn't really sure what her connection to disability was at first, so I messaged her. She left a message, and there's membership questions, and she left a message, but I believe it was in Tagalog, so I couldn't understand it. So I reached out to her. I tried Spanish. I thought, well, maybe she doesn't know English. I can try this, because I know a little bit of Spanish, you know. And turns out she could speak English. So we started talking. And apparently she was looking for a place to get advice and financial help because her son has the same disability that I do. And she'd found me. I was advertising for the group and a group for arthrogryposis, my diagnosis. And, you know, the Uninspiring Group at the time and even now, I mean, it's college students and like a couple social workers. I mean, we don't have money, you know, we're not going to be a great resource for that. So I thought, you know, I'd seen people on Tumblr post a lot of fundraising. It's a great platform for that. And I knew accounts on there that made their whole thing about sharing fundraising posts. So that's what I did. I talked to her a little more. I got some pictures and I heard more about her story, and she sent me where she was fundraising already. And so I shared that on my account, and we were able to raise enough money for her son, Kyle. He was able to get a CT scan. He was able to get antibiotics because he had pneumonia, and he made it. We weren't sure. It was kind of scary, but he made it because of all the funding we got.
That's an amazing story.
Thank you.
So you have the Uninspiring Group, and we'll go into that a little bit. And Mrs. Tay reached out to be a member of that. I'm just going to kind of summarize here.
Oh, this is somebody else. Her name was Jing, not Tay.
Okay, I got you. Reached out from the Philippines area and was looking for some funding to help, you said with the CT scan and stuff like that. And you at the time were just, like you said, with a couple other college students and social workers thinking, you know, how can we be of service? And you took action, you know, and so you created those fundraising sources. And how did you do that? Did you create the page, like the design yourself?
See, she had a fundraiser going on air funding already, but the big problem was exposure, especially exposure to people who had money to spare. So I shared it. I figured most of my people would be from the US or Europe, you know, wealthier countries, we might have more disposable income. So I shared it on my platform, and I included pictures and everything to make it, you know, people would know it was legit. And I sent it to other people that raise money. So that child's, you know, good life could be saved because of those efforts that you and that mom went through there. Yeah, I know she worked so hard. She searched for really anything, and there was no support. There was no way to get anything in time. There's nothing for urgent situations.
I feel like we kind of take that for granted, being in the West, as we are in our access. And I know we're not at 100%. Nothing is at 100%, but you know, hearing these stories, you know, makes me pretty grateful for the area that we live in and the access to healthcare that we have. Right. Yeah.
That's why it's so important, like I said, to kind of share it and get that message out to people who have these privileges and who have these opportunities.
And it wasn't just that one individual and family that the fundraising helped.
No, actually. So Miss Zui Tay over here, she was also helping Jing. She did so much to help them. And after, you know, we started talking on ways that we could help her and Kyle. So then she also has, Miss Tay also has a daughter with my disability. And she needed money for them to come to the U.S. and get a surgery for her daughter, Saj. So I also made a fundraising post for them using the same kind of formula I did before.
Yeah. And how long ago was that?
That wasn't that long ago, maybe 3 or 4 months.
Yeah. So is the fundraising still going on?
I think that has closed because she was able to get the surgery.
Oh, so she's come over to the States and has been able to get that surgery. That's amazing. And that's just the air flight on that has got to be expensive.
Right. To come from the Philippines, I mean, it's insane. And then you have to consider how much more things cost here than they do there.
Yeah.
They'd already done it so many times for other surgeries that, you know, they were just completely out. There was no savings to be had at that point.
It makes me wonder if there's like a traveling doctor or a traveling, you know, team that would be able to do that through the Red Cross or something. I don't know. I'm kind of getting there.
I think she'd been to specialists closer, but it's like there's a special clinic that does a lot of stuff for arthrogryposis in Florida.
Okay, so there is kind of a central location for the top of the top, or the specialist that you would consider.
It depends. That one specifically does a lot of different things.
So let's go back to the sociology, and I want to ask about the honors program that you're enrolled in. So if you could tell us a little bit about that. I was never in an honors program, so I'm unfamiliar with that.
So the Global and Community Leadership Program, basically, it ties in like community action and things like that with, your coursework. So every semester you pick a burning issue, so something you are really concerned about and you really want to make a difference. And then you can kind of tweak your classes and tweak your activities that you do to sort of fit with that.
So is it kind of like you have a goal for a certain amount of time, and you can arrange your classes and activities to succeed at that goal?
I don't know if it's necessarily a goal, but it's more like a topic. I guess if the goal is to learn more or maybe act to help the topic, then yes.
Yeah, I feel like colleges are kind of getting a little bit more flexible with being able to piece together what your classes are going to look like, and I like that change. I feel like in the past it's been, well, if you want to be in IT, then these are the classes you're going to take for the next 4 years. You're not going to change anything. And now going into colleges, I feel like there's a lot more flexibility. Like, what are your interests there? Let's kind of piece this together for you.
Right. And I think that's why GCL is such a great opportunity for me, because a big part of their thing is community action and like activism. So I'm going to be able to make connections and reach out to people that I wouldn't have known otherwise.
And build that network.
Right. That's the most important part, is knowing people and communicating with them and seeing what you can do.
Very cool. And we did talk a little bit about, I'm also going to take a drink. We did talk a little bit about going in to UAB as a freshman, and you mentioned some of the accommodations with longer test times, stuff like that. Would you mind kind of giving the audience some examples of other accommodations that you have at UAB?
Hi, audience. I have, missing class is also kind of an issue for me. As you know, I have the migraines that are really severe. But with that, and also doctor's appointments, there's accommodations you can get where it's less strict on absences and things like that.
Okay.
So that's a really essential one for me. And alternate testing locations is also important. And a scribe. These two kind of go hand in hand for me. So a scribe is someone, you tell them what you want them to write, and they fill out the test for you. So I'll be using that for certain handwritten assignments. That's
very nice. And I imagine, I always thought it would be like a verbal assessment, but you don't appreciate those as much, or they're just not allowed?
It's not always an option, I think, because you have to kind of be one-on-one with the instructor. And also, I feel like when you have the instructor there and you're put on the spot, you're going to be like, the answer is 32, no, 33, that kind of thing.
And you might get a little bit harder test because it's the instructor there, like, challenging you.
Right. You got to look them in the eye and tell them the answer.
You can't be like, just let me think for a second.
Right.
So tell me a little bit more about the scribe. I'm unfamiliar with that. Now, it's somebody that will be with you in the classroom?
I think for me, since I have assistive technology, that's another one, having assistive technology in the classroom. But I have assistive technology that most of the time will do a lot of the writing for me and things like that. But I think the scribe is mostly for exams. So,
what kind of assistive? I've heard of the Dragon before.
I have that. I love it.
I have a friend, Allison Haynes, who will use some Dragon type of stuff, and I've heard it's awesome, but I've never used it myself.
It's really good. You let it get used to your voice, and it never really messes up on me.
Yeah.
I've written whole papers with it.
I'd like to try it out sometime.
You should, yeah.
Yeah.
It's expensive, though.
Is it?
I forget. I think it's like maybe $80 at the lowest, and then you got to buy equipment to work with it. But you've obviously got microphones, so.
Yeah. Shout out to the Alabama Council of Developmental Disabilities for providing the funding for the equipment that you see.
Yes, thank you. This is nice.
ACDD, appreciate you guys. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the Uninspiring Group. You mentioned that was how you kind of got associated with the fundraising for the Philippines. When did you start the Uninspiring Group?
I think about January. It was sort of my New Year's resolution type thing.
Yeah.
I had just recovered from surgery and I was feeling pretty isolated, especially with the pandemic. This year has been terrible, especially when you're, disabled and you have extra health concerns. So, yeah, I wanted to unite people and sort of curb the loneliness and just the fear. And there was also so much going on, so much newsworthy things that I was worried people wouldn't know. Like, for example, disabled people weren't being prioritized with the vaccine. And that was scary for me because I knew people that are on vents, my best friends. And it's like, they need this so bad. And, so what if they're 17? They're at risk. They need this. So I was sending out that. One of the first posts I think on there is me talking about that.
And spreading that awareness in the community.
Right.
I didn't realize the Uninspiring Group was just this year that you started.
Yeah, it hasn't been going very long.
Yeah, so that's amazing. And I am a member of the Uninspiring Group. Thank you for letting me in.
Thank you for asking to join.
For anyone that would like to do that, we can also post a link in that in chat. It is the Uninspiring Group on Facebook.
Yes.
If you could tell the audience a little bit about what that symbol looks like, just so they know the icon symbol.
The icon symbol, I think it's just like a square with a turquoise background, and then it says the Uninspiring Group in white letters, no caps. I think there's sort of like a colored shadow, maybe like a red shadow behind the letters.
And you do have to answer some questions to get in.
Yes, you do.
I feel like I was being tested.
Well, I mean, I want to protect my users because, there's people with all kinds of disabilities, developmental disabilities, intellectual disabilities, and physical disabilities. So, I want to make sure that people who need to be there are there and not anyone that might be a predator or something,
Yeah, and it can kind of get off target when you have too big of an audience in there just posting all the time.
Right.
So it is nice to have that, concrete, these are the people that are in this group, and this is what this group is for.
Right. I think another thing that's important is I don't have many people that do not have disabilities in my group, and I wanted it to be, and I don't let parents in. So if you're
Really?
No, not under any circumstances, unless the person that wants to be in it doesn't have access to their own Facebook.
So tell me why the decision to not let parents in?
That was like my first decision when I made it. Well, because we never get to vent. I mean, being cared for is so hard, we talk about caregiver burnout all the time, but I don't think we talk about caree burnout. It's such a thing. And, we need a space to be independent and have some privacy and be able to talk about things candidly without it spilling over into our home lives and our interpersonal relationships with family.
I think that's very important. You have to have that peer network that you can. I play hockey, so I kind of get that in the locker room with the guys that I play on the hockey team. But I need that. I need to be able to vent, even, be like, oh, my girlfriend's driving me crazy or something like that.
Right. We all get on each other's nerves, but if you're with them 24/7 all the time, then it's just going to spill over. It's going to make that relationship really hard. Yeah.
And it'll erupt at some point, and then it'll come out a little bit nasty way.
Right.
So you need to get that out there.
And, when someone's caring for you, it's just a whole other bag of chips, I guess you'd say. It's
a unique relationship because they might be a friend or a family member, but then there's also another. So I'm taking care of my aunt. There's, in charge of that care for her, there's that family aspect, but then there's also, it has to be run professionally, and the people that are with her have to be trained, and then her mother's involved. So it creates like a family caring, but also business thing.
Right.
It's really tough sometimes to navigate, especially when you're in close quarters with everything going on.
Right.
So
yeah. Getting time away from it's really important, and being with people that understand you.
If you could talk a little bit about, so you mentioned that you first started the Uninspiring Group kind of because of the pandemic. How has the pandemic been? How's it gone for you?
The worst.
Yeah.
The absolute worst. It's been such an emotional drain because from the beginning, being someone who's not in perfect health, I'm better off than a lot of people. I have a lot of privilege in that respect, that my disability is the way it is. But, knowing people, having friends that, are in danger, is really, it takes so much toll on you. I had nightmares. I had so much that I was just so scared of, I didn't know what was going to happen, especially in the early days.
And I think a lot of what we see on TV and kind of the hype is more physical. Did somebody get sick? That kind of stuff. What are the symptoms? But I think something that's not been talked about a lot is the mental and emotional toll that the pandemic has had and mental health. I'm a very outgoing person. I almost get energized being around people.
I do too.
When I'm by myself, in which the pandemic kind of quarantined us all, I get drained. I get lonely. Some depression, that kind of stuff. And so it took its toll on me as well, worrying about people and just kind of being secluded.
Right. Yeah. I had a boyfriend at the time, and we didn't get to see each other for like 6 months because of it. We were scared to meet up. We didn't know what was going to happen. So it was a big deal for me.
And now we're hearing about this like possible second D variant. And I'm like, please, let's get past this.
I know.
I just want to be past this.
If you can get vaccinated, please do.
Yes.
These are, my opinions, not the opinions of Alabama Cares or whoever funds y'all.
No, we're definitely pushing it. As I understand, Alabama, we need to do a lot better. We're in last place, about 36% vaccinated. I think we're tied for last with Louisiana or Mississippi. I can't remember. So we can definitely do better as a state there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot people don't consider because they're lucky to be able to get vaccinated because immunocompromised people can, and their lives are always in danger from illnesses like this. So if you can do it, don't do it for yourself, do it for somebody else.
I like that.
Yeah.
Find somebody in your community that you care about and do it for them.
Right. It's all about taking care of each other and supporting each other.
Mrs. I hope I'm saying this correctly. Zwite?
Zwite. It's actually a nickname. It's a long story.
So you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Her name's Rafaela.
Oh, okay. That would throw me off there.
Yeah.
She says, thank you, McCartney, for everything, especially for the time and effort of helping us watching from the Philippines. So thank you for being here with us. I think it's amazing that technology can do that. It can bring people together across the world.
It's amazing. Yeah. And honestly, she's done so much for me. I wouldn't have been able to do the fundraising without her. And I wouldn't have been able to, we're actually working on getting a Facebook page going, she and I, to help, because there's so many people that don't have access to information or funding. So we're going to get sort of like a news network / fundraising page where I can keep doing this for other people.
And if I were to take that to the extreme, I wonder if there would be maybe some funding available at the national level. I don't know what that looks like, though.
I don't know. I'm definitely going to look into it once I get a little more together. I haven't even thought of a name of it yet. I'm working on it, I promise. But it's a lot of pressure.
You've got a lot on your plate. I mean, you're going into college. You have all these other activities and plans going on. So sometimes I'll load my plate with a little bit too much. So take care of yourself. Make sure you're getting that self-care.
I try. I feel like I might have bitten off more than I can chew, but I'm just going to have to adapt and learn to chew it because this is what I want to do.
That's where the growth comes from, is when you put yourself in uncomfortable situations and you kind of adapt there.
Yeah.
So very cool. I want to ask a question. We had a conversation, I guess it was last week or the week before. And sometimes I get a little bit shy, with words that we use and wondering if they're appropriate. And I feel like the language we use has a lot of meaning and weight to it, but also it changes, quite often. And we had talked about the phrases of a disabled person versus a person with a disability.
Yes.
And if you could walk me through that and kind of your thoughts behind that.
So everybody has their own preferences, and that's totally okay. I'm going to preface this with that. Whichever form of language you use, that is totally fine. Good for you, whatever makes you feel comfortable. But for me, and I know a lot of other people, I don't like person first language. I don't use it for myself, and I don't often use it when I speak. I will use it professionally if that's what's required, but I don't use it.
Now, for anyone that's unfamiliar with person first language, what would be an example there?
So that would be person with a disability, person with name condition.
And so it would be the person first, and then from that. And so, but you say you prefer
identity first language.
Identity first language. What would kind of be, why?
Well, to me, I've been corrected for saying disabled person. And to me, that's just unbelievable because I am disabled. That is a part of who I am. And I don't need to separate it from myself. It's given me this opportunity to be here. It's given me all these, this perspective on life. It's given me a culture. It's given me friends. It's given me a people. So I shouldn't have to stress that I am a person before I am disabled, because I am also disabled. It's just a part of me.
Yeah. I love how you say that's individual. So each person can make their own distinction of how they would like the language to be.
Right. A lot of people, especially newly disabled people, which is going to be a big thing after COVID, may not be comfortable with their identity yet. They may not have found that community that I have.
And I've had people contact us saying, hey, the language you're using isn't correct. And then I go back to what they were referencing, and the comment or the timestamp was from a person that has a disability,
right?
Or in this instance, I would say disabled person, because we're in the room talking.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's not my area to correct. It's their language that they're using, and they know a lot more about what's they like more than I do.
Right. It really bugs me. Please don't correct people unless it's like straight up offensive and it's completely not okay. Then people want to know when they're saying something like that, but
And so for myself, how would you recommend going about that? Should I ask the individual that I'm speaking with ahead of time, hey, how would you like me to talk about this language in a people first way, or as in this other way?
Yeah, sure. That'd be a great approach. Asking is always a good way. I'm really hoping that in the next few years we can get the industry standard to be a disabled person instead of person with a disability, because a lot of advocates are for that. But again, that's sort of my personal thing,
Yeah, and I think being open to the conversation is a big thing.
Right.
When we talk about inclusion, I think a lot of people are a little bit taken back or nervous just because they don't have any experience. With different societies and different cultures and stuff like that, just people that don't exactly look like them. Right. But if we can just open up and everybody be a little bit more open, I think in asking questions like, hey, how's your day? How would you like me to talk about this? Goes a long way.
Right, because we can't just assume. One of the biggest things I look for when I'm looking for friends, or I'm looking for someone even to hire as a personal care attendant, I look for someone who's not going to make assumptions about me.
And how does that, so currently your team, a couple of the people that help you are family members, and you have some others that are not. And that's a lot. It kind of seems like we talked about it, it's running your own business.
It is, and it's hard because, when you're employing family, you just want to do the best for them. You want to take care of them, and you want the relationship to go perfectly. But, it makes it where, like, if they've done something wrong, you have to tell them because they want you to tell them. But you just, communication is important.
Mm-hmm. And you don't, and that role is sometimes a little like an employee, but also like a mom or something like you.
Right.
So it kind of muddies the water there, but just being open about it is very good. I'd like to talk a little bit about, so we're going into college. We got 4 years of college, or however long, 5 years, 4 years, 3 years, whatever that looks like.
I'm not speeding it up.
You're not gonna,
no.
Plate's full. Don't
taking
put all
my
that.
time. Yeah.
What does life look like after college?
After college, well, I kind of want to stay around here for a little bit. I am still interested in going out of state. Once I know how to handle my own personal care and things like that, and I feel comfortable, then going to NYU or UIC is totally an option, and I'm considering it. But I feel like there's a lot to be done in this community right here, and I don't want to abandon that.
I love that you said NYU, and I know that those classes that you were speaking about earlier are offered in Chicago and NYU, and I was thinking, you could always do a master's or whatever that looks like. That's what I thought about
doing, yeah.
Yeah, and transfer up there for your master's after UAB or whatever that looks like, I think would be really cool. And and I don't know if I would use the word abandoning, because even though you go out of state, and I would recommend to anybody to travel.
I love traveling, yeah.
Yeah, I recommend going and living in a different part of the country or world. I think it's a life experience. Grew up in Philadelphia, lived in Phoenix for a while, now in Alabama, and I think it's really good to travel and see those different states. And so I love to hear that you're thinking about doing that as a possibility there and wanting to get out.
I do.
But even if, going out doesn't mean you're never going to come back or contribute to your local community.
Right. Even if I do end up leaving for my master's, I want to still run the group. I want to still keep in touch with people from camp and see how everyone's doing, because I have connections here and I have people here that I care about, and I want to make sure that they're always, if they need me, I'm going to be here.
Mm-hmm. And that technology is a great way to do it.
It's great.
Yeah.
And one of my best friends is from Ireland, actually. So,
really?
Yeah.
We have people on from the Philippines.
Yeah.
Today, so that's amazing. I love that you have that world connection there. All right. So we talked a little bit about, maybe going up to NYU or to Chicago for furthering studies. What are some long-term goals and dreams that you have?
Well, have you heard of Judy Heumann?
I have not.
She is sort of like the mother of the disability rights movement. She devoted her life to, fighting. She was born with polio, or she had polio. So, yeah, and she's still doing great things. So she's one of my idols. I want to do what she's done and sort of make things better. We wouldn't have the Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, and we wouldn't have the ADA without her.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to work on legislation. I want to do stuff in small communities too. And I think the biggest thing is, being from a rural place, I wasn't exposed to so much of the information and so much of the culture and the people that I could have been and that I needed to be. I could have been doing a lot more by now, I think, if I had that opportunity. So connecting people, disabled people that aren't in the center of everything, that maybe haven't heard about this or that yet. I want to make sure everybody knows what they can accomplish and knows that they aren't alone.
Yeah. I feel like there's so many possibilities in doing that.
There's a lot of different ways, yeah.
Yeah. I imagine just like a course that everybody would take in middle school or high school, and you would partner with schools. I didn't know if you were going to say anything there.
Oh.
And it sounds like maybe moving a little bit closer to either Montgomery or Washington, D.C.
Yeah, I'm definitely thinking about trying to go for a national office of some kind, or maybe start my own agency, run an agency. I want to do something like that,
Mm-hmm.
administrative. And
A member of Congress.
maybe, yeah, I'm not opposed to it,
Yeah.
McCartney Hagar 2035 or something.
I love it. And so you've got quite a bit on your plate now, and big visions and dreams for the future. And I'm very excited to have you as a guest today. And
Thank you.
For the audience, we are going to have McCartney. I'm sorry,
It's okay.
McCartney on in the future here. She has got a plethora of broadcast ideas that are unfamiliar to me, and I think she's a wealth of information to speak on those.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I'm so happy to be doing this. This is my dream. If you would have asked me what I wanted to be doing in a year last year, I would want to be doing something like this. This is what I want to do.
Well, we're happy to have you here and joining as a part of the team.
Absolutely.
So you guys will see more of Ms. Hagar and kind of her journey going into UAB here in the next couple
Looking forward to
weeks.
sharing that, yeah.
As we come to a close today, is there anything, excuse me, is there anything that we haven't talked about or that you believe would be beneficial to an individual or a family member?
Well, there is the last child from the Philippines who I helped. Her name's Queen, and I don't know if the specific fundraiser that I got.
Can I hold up the shirt if you don't mind?
I got this shirt from is closed, but I think they might still be raising funds for her. She has
Let's see if that shows up.
She has spina bifida and hydrocephalus, and we raised money for her to get a surgery not too long ago. So that's been pretty recent.
And her name is Queen.
Yes.
I love it.
I know, it's so cute.
And this shirt can be purchased.
I don't think they're offering them anymore. I think the thing's closed, but
I'm taking it then.
you're gonna have to wrestle me.
It's a very nice shirt, and I love the material.
It's very comfortable, yeah. So that's been something, and then something that would help a person or a family member. You said?
Yeah, just anything that you'd like to leave people with.
Well, it's a Disability Pride Month, so hug your family members, feel beautiful, take care of yourselves. I think that's what this is all about, reach out to your friends. And, you may be disabled and just not know it, so, look into that, Like, I think they just decided that long COVID qualifies as a disability now.
I did see that as a headline. So know your rights, know your
Yeah,
resources.
exactly. Know what you're entitled to, because there's more out there than you know, and if it's not out there, fight for it to be there, you know?
I love it. Mrs. Tay says you're always welcome to the Philippines anytime. And Ginny says McCartney for president.
I love you guys. Thank you.
Awesome. At this point, we'll go ahead and kind of say bye to the audience, and you'll see Ms. Hagar hopefully next week.
That would be awesome. Bye, everybody. Thank you for watching.
All right, guys. We'll see you next time.